All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining our session today, supporting students with disabilities during school closures. My name is Rick Bloomquist, Regional Manager with Admentum, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator today. So as Laura mentioned earlier, if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please don't hesitate to put that in the chat, and we'll save time at the end that I can relay those questions to Laura, and hopefully she can answer. So just to tell you a bit about our presenter, Laura Porter-Jones fell into education despite her parents' best efforts to convince her to go into a different direction. Starting with Head Start more than 30 years ago, Laura spent more than a dozen years as a K-12 classroom teacher before going to the dark side and becoming the first building administrator, then a district level administrator. She has served charter, public, parochial, private, and international schools over the course of her career, and she has a passion for students that don't fit due to reasons of disability, economic status, or a combination of factors. A special area of interest in research has been twice exceptional and thrice exceptional students who demonstrate giftedness and disability simultaneously. Also, Laura's been married to Morgan for over 34 years, and they have 4 grown children and 3 grandchildren. So with that introduction, please let me welcome Laura Porter-Jones.
Well, thank you, Rick. Good afternoon, everybody. I am delighted to be with you this afternoon, and I'm grateful that you're willing to take the time to talk about this very important subject. So we've landed in this place where we had no idea we were going to be. If you had told me in early February that schools were going to simultaneously shut down and we were going to have to reinvent the wheel, I probably would have thought you were smoking something. You know, this really came out of left field for a lot of us. And so the image that I've chosen for today's presentation is this idea, and I know you all have heard the analogy before, that we're building the plane while we're flying it. But that really is the only analogy I can come up with. So there's a few things I want to encourage you to do, especially for those of you who are special ed teachers. Because it has been my experience as both a special ed practitioner and as an administrator that y'all are the salt of the earth, but you tend to go to extraordinary lengths to do what you got to do. And sometimes you have to remember that you got to take care of yourself. So please be sure that you are keeping yourself healthy and doing for yourself those self-care kinds of things that are going to help you to do the best that you possibly can do for your students. So just a few ground rules and bits and pieces. And, you know, I apologize. For some of you, these may be very commonplace, but I'm finding that more and more as I do these kinds of sessions, people are saying, you know, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good idea. As you work your way through conducting sessions, whether it's one-on-one or small groups, make sure that you've availed yourself of Zoom or Skype. There's subscriptions being offered for free during this pandemic, and they are HIPAA and FERPA compliant. Let me be very clear on that. I had a conversation with an SLP the other day who was using Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts, even if you've got the appropriate permissions from parent and so on, do not meet the guidelines for HIPAA and FERPA. So be careful and cautious when you're using some of these digital platforms to communicate with your students in whatever form it is. Set a schedule and stick to it. You know, it really is okay to say no. The world is not going to end if you don't take on another student call or respond to a parent until tomorrow. The other thing that I would really encourage you to do, and I know this is harder for the small districts, is if at all possible, find a non-teaching staff member to be your resource person for those non-academic supports, whether it's food, emergency services, whatever it is. You know, I know one district is even providing liaisons to utility support and resumes for parents who are finding themselves out of work and so on. That's great and that's fantastic, but whenever possible, you need to take that off your teaching staff and make sure that they know the phone number, the email, the website, whatever it is that they can pass along, and so that's not burdening them while they're trying to deal with students. Couple of other basics. Anytime that you get on the phone with a student, whether it's for a session, to have an office hours or a class, I want you to please ask the student or students, do you feel safe where you are? One of the things that we're going to find as we make our way further through this pandemic, the domestic violence rate is rising very rapidly. The sales of alcohol in this country have skyrocketed. And that leads sometimes, often, to bad decisions and situations that make home not safe. So I have provided in this PowerPoint the domestic hotline and the ability to text or call the Trevor Project. They specifically serve LGBTQA plus youth. Please know that when this session concludes, anyone who registered for it will receive a copy of the recording as well as this PowerPoint. I have a whole bunch of free resources at the very end of this PowerPoint that I'm probably not going to go through during this time, but they're there for you. They're clickable and they're free. Second question I want you to ask your students: do you have enough to eat? Again, this may sound like a kind of a ridiculous question, but it really isn't. If your district is providing meals to go or delivering backpacks or whatever, who is in charge of that? Who is the one who's coordinating that? Have that at hand that you can respond to a parent or a student or what have you. Don't let that soak up all of your time, and reserve that as you need to in terms of being able to balance for your student. And then here's the other issue that I want you to make sure that you convey to your students before all of the hierarchy of IEPs and 504s, and gosh, I have so many minutes I have to get to on goals, is how are you doing? How are you feeling? And then have the courage to take a few minutes and listen. Students who normally are under stress and deal with a vast amount of anxiety are really in no man's land right now. And we are that conduit to be able to express fear and frustration and then be able to have a response. And that goes back again to that staff person at your district who may be able to connect with mental health resources. A lot of the insurance companies right now are now providing free telehealth and mental health sessions. I know throughout California, a number of the larger insurance companies are doing this right now. Know those emergency numbers. Have somebody at your district who can communicate that information out to your families. Certainly your guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, etc. Make sure they're aware of that. All right, enough of that stuff. So what I'd really like to do is I want to take you on a very brief walkthrough of 3 specific Edmentum products. And I'm doing this totally through a lens for exceptional students or students identified with disabilities, okay? And I want to make you aware that through the month of June, these 3 products are being offered for free by Edmentum, okay? And somebody may say, well, that doesn't help me in the fall. I understand that, but here's what I'd suggest is if you have the ability to, get yourself a free subscription or a trial for just that 30 days and do some digging around and playing with it after I show you these things. We have all kinds of amazing built-in accommodations and easy modifications so that if you have students who cannot or will not return to your brick and mortar facility in the fall, you've got some tools that you can use to support them and move them forward. So specifically, I'm going to be talking about ExactPath, Study Island, and courseware. Now, we do have other tools in the toolkit, but I don't have enough time to go into all of them today. So if you'd like more information on those, please reach out to one of us. We are delighted to assist you. And we know that every school is different and every circumstance is slightly different. We are happy to consult with you to learn more about your specific circumstance so we can help you create solutions. So let's dig in first to ExactPath. Some of you may already be very aware of ExactPath. It's a very popular tool in California, and we are very proud to announce that just last week we learned that ExactPath received the Cody Award, which is an international award for Best Adaptive Tool. And this is a really, really cool, powerful tool. And I got to tell you, if I'd had this 25 years ago when I was starting in special ed, oh, it would have made a world of difference. But here's how it works. You start with a fully adaptive diagnostic. Now, at Edmentum, we have our own in-house diagnostic, which is great. But if you happen to use Renaissance STAR or NWEA MAP testing, those programs will also inform the individualized learning paths for this product. So you don't have to do any additional testing, okay? If you use the Edmentum diagnostic, you can do it up to 4 times per year. But here's what I'm going to tell you. If, in fact, you come back to a let's say a short-term lockdown circumstance where you have to close school for 2 weeks, or if you have students who are just simply not going to return, you can be very flexible with that diagnostic. And as a teacher, you can also simply place a student on a learning path. Now, once the student has an assigned learning path, they're going to get instruction and practice and the ability to demonstrate through a brief summative mastery test. They know it, they can apply it, they've got it, good, let's move on, okay? This is down to that skill level. So it's a really, really powerful tool to use. So I want to dive into this and I want to show you some of the features that this will give you, okay? So I'm going to start over here with math, okay? So let's say that I have a small subgroup of 3rd through 5th graders that I am working with, okay? This is what we call our knowledge map, okay? So these students are chronologically in grades 3 through 5, 8 to 10 years old or so. And they've taken that adaptive diagnostic and it's populated this knowledge map. So here's what you're looking at. Over here on the left, I have my students, and up here at the top, I have my skills continuum. And this skills continuum is K through 12, okay? So a note for those of you who might also work with G&T students, if you've got a 3rd grader who's working on 5th, 6th, 7th grade math, this system works really well too, because it will help move the student forward appropriately without skipping anything, okay? So once we've got a student placed on the map, the squares that are in blue are the skills to which the student is currently assigned. We only assign 4 at a time. We don't want to drown anybody. We don't want anybody overwhelmed. We don't like tears, okay? If you see the green square with a trophy, that means the student has gone through and completed the instruction. They've done the practice, and then they have gotten 80% or better on a down and dirty 5-question quiz. Easy peasy. Now, please note that when they go into a particular skill, this is not spiraled or combined. This is just that bare bones skill. This is really critical. So let's say on a student's IEP, they are looking specifically at measurement data and statistics. They struggle with that. Maybe it's a visual conceptual thing. Maybe it's a processing and it doesn't stick, what have you. I can isolate by going up here to this top to the domains, and I can see exactly where that student placed on the diagnostic in terms of just measurement and data. So now the map has gotten even more colorful. But you notice all these grayed out squares between the green? That tells me the student isn't even ready to learn that skill. They don't have the schema or the foundational knowledge with which to apply that. So let's take a look at Uzair here. Uzair is a 3rd grader, but clearly Uzair is just working his way through kindergarten measurement and data. So if he's in 3rd grade and we're trying to work on time and time elapsed and capacity and mass, he's going to get really frustrated and he's probably going to shut down, okay? So I would be better served to have him work with in his exact path on the things that he is ready for, rather than giving him the grade level work at this time. So this is another data point I can use to make important instructional decisions and not waste my time. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go back to all of those different domains, okay? So as I work my way along here, I can see I've got students all over the place, okay? And something really important, because of the precision of the data, we don't just drop a pin in a line and say, okay, you're at this point in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, you have to do all of 2nd grade. It is so precise that it says you need this skill and you don't need these and you need this skill. See how those blue squares are broken up a little bit? So we're going to only address the skills that we need. Now that becomes even more critical when we start dealing with high school students. So I'm going to switch this over here to 9 to adult. And now I'm going to look at reading, okay? Go back into that knowledge map. Okay, 9 through adult. And again, this is real data, but we've scrubbed the names and all that kind of good stuff. So this might be a small group of students that maybe I was the case manager for. And so I used ExactPath, I put them in the diagnostic, and look at this. I've got one student, Carrie, who clearly has some gaps at the 2nd grade level. But Carrie's a high school student, okay? So here's one of the benefits of this program that I absolutely love. We have 2 separate and distinct platforms, okay? K-5, 6-12. When you enroll students, you do so at their chronological age and grade placement. okay? So if I have a student who's functioning at about a 4th grade level in reading, okay, I can come in here and I can find content at K5 and also at 612. Because if I've got a high school student in front of me and I put bouncing balls and clowns and jugglers, they don't engage, okay? So let's take a quick look at what it looks like for a K5 student. So if I have that younger student who needs help with this particular skill, this format is going to be very appropriate, okay? I'm going to see cartoon characters that are going to be relevantly in my age. I've got a dictionary, it's fully narrated. I've got a translate function, it's broken down into nice palatable chunks, okay? But again, I tried to use that for a high school student, not working. So here down here is the exact same skill, but in a 6th through 12th grade format. And for those of you who might be familiar with courseware, Plato courseware, ExactPath sits on the same platform as Plato courseware, and it's in the same exact format. So if a student has courses in courseware that they're working on, this is going to be a seamless transition. Yes, it's still a 4th grade reading skill, but I'm going to see young adults, I'm going to see adults, and it's going to have a schema to it that is appropriate to me for my age. And it's going to give me all kinds of support. Plus, if I come over here on the left, I've got helps built in, resource tab. If you have a document that you want to attach, let's say a glossary of terms, or maybe there's some things that you have worked with a student that you want them to remember to keep in mind, you can electronically clip that right here. Or let's say it's math and there are particular formulas related to geometry. You can clip that here as well. Dictionary, text to speech, you can set it and forget it and it will narrate fully, or you can do it by highlighting it and just dropping certain sections. Translate function works in 16 different languages, and there are highlighters. So if you have a student who's dyslexic and it helps to vary the color and the size of the text, you are able to do that as well. Please note that there are also other things that are embedded in the text. So we can provide students with immediate references to definitions that are a little bit more intensive and a little bit higher level, okay? Again, our goal here is to have the students experience autonomy and dignity. We want to give them every opportunity to grab onto that skill and be able to apply it, okay? So there's lots and lots of good things in here. I could spend a whole hour just going over ExactPath, but unfortunately I don't have that kind of time at this point. So I want to segue forward to another tool that I really like to show, and that's our Study Island. Study Island is a practice tool. So the premise is that if you teach something, no matter what level it is, you want to have your students have the opportunity to try it, and then try it again and try it again and try it again. And one of the things in my experience, especially with SLD students, is they want and need to have lots of opportunities. Textbooks don't often have enough problems, okay? Or in some cases, we want to give them shorter, smaller sections of questions. Or perhaps you've got students for whom internet connectivity is still an issue. Study Island can address several of those issues. So let's go ahead and log into that and take a quick peek. So let's say, for instance, that I have a student who is working at approximately 6th grade in math. No matter their age, they are working at 6th grade level in math. So I'm going to use California as an example here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose math. So please know that Study Island is fully aligned state by state, no guessing, no muss, no fuss. This is the full standards breakdown. We call this our topic tree, okay? And so each one of these different strands under here represents particular curricular strands. And you can come over here and you can pull this up and it's going to tell you exactly what that strand is. So you know, yep, I'm on the right track, okay? So this is how this works. If I teach a lesson or I have some mechanism by which I'm doing it, whether it's a flipped classroom or I'm doing some blended learning or my students come in for a couple days, whatever it is, and they need to practice, and my textbook has only so many problems and they want to try it and try it again, Study Island gives you practice sessions, 10 questions each, over just that particular curricular strand. And you can push that out as an assignment, or students can surf on that topic tree and choose what they want, okay? But here's something else I love. We have a game mode in here. So if you've got that reluctant learner, we've all had them, This is really cool because I can choose a sport game, an action game, or a puzzle game. And what happens is the student has to complete that same 10-question practice session, but every time they get a question correct, they get 45 to 60 seconds of game time. Boom, I get the data, they get the practice, they get to play a silly game. Works out quite well. Now within the practice, each one of these sessions, they get 10 questions. They're going to get immediate feedback. We've got accommodations built in, whether it's text to speech, whether it's a variety of tools, highlighters, changing the size of the text, etc. Okay. The student receives immediate feedback here. If they get it wrong, it's going to show them the correct answer. Paco comes out, gives them a little cheering section. They can click on an explanation that's going to be detailed and often visual. And it's also going to be at the accompanying appropriate Lexile level. So if this is a 6th grade math, it's going to be a 6th grade Lexile level in terms of reading. Please notice at the bottom that it's keeping track of how many questions I've answered and how long I've been in the system and what my score is. We believe, again, in student autonomy. We want learners to have information about their own progress and take responsibility whenever possible. You're going to see a lot of different item types within here. Lots of technology enhanced item types so that students have the ability to experience that, because we know they're going to see them on some of these high stakes tests. They can leave a session and come back to it later. It will put them right straight back into the question they finished with. Okay. And they can do as many sessions as they want. Okay. I had a student once who really loved math, couldn't read to save his life, but numbers made sense to him. And he loved the language of math. And I wish I'd had this program, because he could have gone in here and done 15 or 20 practice sessions over decisions of whole numbers. And very likely, he would not have seen the same question twice. Our bank of questions is so robust at this point that a student can do 15 sessions and the chances that they're going to see the same question are very, very small. Okay. So here's what else you can do with this. Student comes home, or you've taught the lesson in some fashion, whether it's home learning, virtual learning, remote learning, whatever we're calling it now, and they need some support. They can't quite remember what it was. Lesson, embedded lessons. These are also fantastic if you've got well-meaning parents who want to assist. These are frequently very well broken down, very detailed. They often include embedded videos. They give the student the chance to go through and go, oh, okay, I remember that now, all right? So that's another way we can help them. There are flashcards that can be printed out, or they can do them visually on screen. And if you've got students for whom internet connectivity is still an issue, you can create printable worksheets. And I love this because you can choose the number of questions. So let's say I have a student who's only supposed to have a few questions as opposed to their peers. I can do 6 questions. I don't want any multiple choice. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that too. You have lots of options in here. So this program is going to give you a dynamic tool to be able to do practice against standards. So if you're trying to do progress monitoring and the IEP or 504 specifically says we're going to work on these particular standards, these goals, this is a terrific tool, because no matter what level a student is, K through 12, you've got English language arts, math, science, and social studies, and you know that it's aligned to your state standards, okay? The other thing I want to show you very briefly is the group session. Group session, if you are doing remote virtual teaching and you want to check for understanding, you can set up a group session and you can have this on your screen as a Zoom, or if your students are connected, they can log in on their devices and you can put questions on the screen and then poll your students. They can give you the answers and then you can discuss it. And you can work the problem out on the screen in front of them. Or you can call on a student and say, show me how you would do this, or explain to me why you picked that answer. So it gives you yet another mechanism to check for understanding and to prevent that frustration piece and to keep them persisting and moving forward. Okay? So let's take a brief review here. I always like to put this in kind of RTI terms when I'm talking to folks such as you guys. Study Island is the tool of choice 80% of the time for 80% of students. If I teach something and I need my students to have the ability to practice it and try it again, Study Island is where I want to go. If there's something missing, if the student cannot grasp the entire curricular strand, because there's too many pieces and one of them is missing, ExactPath is going to be that tool of choice, because ExactPath is going to go down to that granular heart of the missing skill, diagnose it, and provide the mechanisms to gain that skill, test for application, and then move the student forward. Finally, there are those students for whom that ability to connect the skills together, that tier 3 student, ExactPath is going to be an absolute wonderful tool, because it's really going to help that student in very concrete terms see what it is that's expected of them. All right, so let's move on here. The third program I want to talk about is courseware. Now, Plato courseware has been around a very long time. Many of you may know it as Plato. It's actually started about 60 years ago. We are very proud of this product. It is not only the granddaddy of them all when it comes to digital courses, but it's such a robust tool to use for students with identified disabilities. And some of you may not even have thought about it for this particular purpose. So that's why I thought it might be a good idea to give you a brief tour of how you can use courseware for students with special needs, okay? So I'm going to log in as a teacher and administrator here. And again, you can get courseware, ExactPath, and Study Island for free through the month of June. And I'd encourage you to do that as a teacher or administrator. Play around with it. See what you can do with it. Try some of these things I'm showing you. First thing I want to show you is what we call flex assignments. Now, flex assignments is what I like to call a bite-sized course, okay? It's really good to help a student recover. It's really good if you have, oh my gosh, the governor just shut the state down for 2 weeks and I have to move my blank class online right now, okay? So here's how it works. Here's my particular class, and I'm going to create a new assignment because maybe they just said, oh, you got to move to online for 2 weeks. And I'm going to call this my writing recovery, because I taught English language arts for a long time. All right, and so I'm going to give my kiddos 2 weeks. I'm going to give them until June 11th. So this really is like a mini piece here. And I can put in some written instructions, okay? I might say, this is your English language arts work for the next 2 weeks. Remember, I have office hours on Mondays, or you can always email me at blanket, whatever it is, you know, give your pep talk. And then you can set your attempts at the mastery test. I like this because I really believe in letting students try and try again. You probably garnered that from my comments in this. But the idea here is that we want students to take risks. That's how we know that true learning takes place. Now I come down here. All the students that are assigned to you will be in this box. So you can pick all your students, some of your students, whichever students you think this is going to apply to, okay? And now you can come down here and you can select your content from the Plato library. Now, I want to point out you can do this by standards. So if you are, again, lining up to that IEP and you've got particular standards that you've got to cover, okay, you can do that. But for demonstration, I'm going to do this by subject and grade. So I'm going to do language arts. And let's say I've got a high school student who is writing below level. So I'm going to choose 8th grade. And I'm going to come down here and looky here. I've got a basic writing skills class. So I'm going to open that up. And the first thing I'm going to look for is what I need against that. And again, if you're doing this by standards, it'll be easier to do this. But let's say we're looking at sentence basics. That's where we are right now. So I'm going to pull that right in here. I've got tons of material in here. In fact, I have far more material than what I need, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start removing some of this. And again, I would strongly encourage you to go through this carefully. And you can certainly open up any one of these and review it and see what's what until you find the right sweet spot, okay? So let's say that I've gone through this carefully and I have an idea of exactly what it is I want in here, but I want to put some reading stuff in there too, because I know this is a writing class, but I know that these students really need some of that. So I'm going to open up that preparing to read. And let's see here. Asking and answering questions about information. I'm going to pull that one into here too. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click Add Pretest. This is pretty slick because what this is going to do is it's going to give a pretest over all of this material that I've chosen. Only the material that I've chosen, not the stuff I've eliminated. And so if the student can demonstrate mastery at 80% or better, it's going to automatically exempt them and say, hey, you don't need to do this. You're good to go. Let's not waste time on that. Let's move forward. I can also add a summative post-test, boom. And again, it's only going to have that post-test over the items that I have chosen. Anything I've omitted, it's not going to be in there. Okay, so then I can come down here and I can click Create Assignment. It's sent to the student automatically with my instructions, and they can get to work. So then my job is to serve more as a facilitator and help back them up and come in when they need me. All right, again, that autonomy and that sense of dignity. All right, let's take a look at, I want to come back to this. So if I go into courseware, and I want to manage my courses, and I'm going to look at the academic success class, okay? And if you haven't had a chance to, I would encourage you to go to our website, edmentum.com, under resources. You can see the entire catalog of Plato courseware classes. Holy cow, we have more A to G approved courses than any other vendor out there. CTE, electives, languages, you name it, it's all there. And every single class we have is fully customizable, okay? So under academic success and fundamentals, I can do a quick report. I can see where my kiddos are. I can open the gradebook. This is critical for those of you who work in SPED because our gradebook is totally customizable. I can change the weights and measures of one student or all students. I can hide, lock, or omit assignments for one student or a group of students. We make it very, very flexible. So if you are trying to keep a student with their peers in terms of a particular grade level, but you're trying to modify the work and make it appropriate and edit it out, we make it super simple to do that. So let's take a look at how that might work. So if I open this academic success class, which I highly recommend for all middle school students, by the way, okay, so let's take a look at this. If we're working on the study habits section, and I don't want my kiddos to work ahead, you see this lock that's right here? I've locked the mastery test because I don't want them to touch the mastery test until I know they're ready, okay? So I can take that off of here. I can unlock it immediately, okay? Or I can also come in here and I can hide everything. If you have students who get anxiety over, oh my gosh, this course is so long, I'm never ever gonna finish it, holy cow, that's gonna kill me, okay? If you hide it from them and say, okay, let's do just a bit at a time, that's another way that we can serve you in this, all right? So you can also omit activities. And this is a function that you can do for one student or a group of students. So if I look at this course overall and I realize that it is just too much for a student, maybe I want to get rid of improving test performance. That is not as relevant. So I'm just going to omit this one. I'm going to take that one out. It's going to automatically take it out of the gradebook for me too. I don't have to do that. It's going to be there for me and it's going to make that happen, okay? So again, I have gone through this very, very quickly. There's a whole lot of different built-in accommodations, whether it's text-to-speech, translate, highlighters, calculators, graphing functions, dictionary support, all kinds of things that are already embedded in here. Guided notes in every core class that's a fully interactive PDF. All of those things are built in, pre-test, post-test, etc. Plus, when you power that with the ability to customize courses fully. So let me just give another second here. We do have a K through 8 curriculum. Pardon me, if for some reason you need that, we have that. Calvert is a new member of the Edmentum family. It is a project-based learning program. It can be ordered with materials or without. So it can be done as a digital only, or it can be done with hardcover materials that are either sent or delivered to families. It is a really rich, robust program. I have to tell you, in the last week, I've had a lot of conversations with school districts all over the Northwest and California and Arizona that are worried about those 20 to 25% of families that have said, look, it's not safe, we're not coming back. And so they're looking for creative ways to not lose that ADM, whether they are identified disabled students or not. Calvert also has built-in accommodations and the ability to create meaningful modifications. So if that is something that you need, please reach out to us. We would be more than happy to talk with you about that. In addition, Edmentum has Ed Options Academy. That's where we provide you with a fully highly qualified state certified teacher, including we have special ed folks. We have amazing special ed folks. So if you have a situation where you simply cannot service the students that you have in front of you, whether it's scheduling, whether it's just, it's not working, reach out to us. We're more than happy to assist you and do it in a way that's affordable, and making sure you get the best quality possible. And that goes for Calvert, and that goes for Plato courseware for older students. And then finally, we also have FEV Tutor, which is a fairly new addition to our portfolio. This is a 24/7 online live tutor. This is not recorded demos like some of our competitors have. This is a live person who has access to both Edmentum courseware and to Calvert. So if the student says, I'm working on Algebra 1 and linear equations and I don't get it, the tutor has that very lesson in front of them. Oh, I can see what you're working on. I know that lesson. Let's look at it together. Okay. And if a student develops a rapport with a tutor, we do our best to make sure that they are paired with that person again. We know that that is a valuable commodity. All right. I've talked a lot about digital tools, but let's make sure too that we're embracing the non-digital and the non-computer and the non-screen time as much as possible, especially when it comes to those transition life skills and so on. This is a great time to teach students how to do laundry, make dinner. I loved one activity that a teacher that I talked to, the teacher said, you have to go into the pantry and into the fridge, and you can only use ingredients that are in your house right now. You can't go to the store, that's not an option. You have to come up with a meal that people are going to eat, and come up with the directions and prepare that, obviously with a sibling assistant or a parent assistance. And some of the resulting projects were just absolutely wonderful, and the self-esteem that resulted was wonderful. I want to open it up at this point if there are any questions, and I'm going to just, while Rick is reading through the questions there, I'm going to make sure everybody knows I have a whole lot of resources at the end of this PowerPoint. They are free for the most part, and all you got to do is click on them. Please avail yourself of them, and please, for heaven's sakes, share them out. That's what the goal of this was. So Rick, what are we doing for questions, my friend?
Thank you, Laura. Great presentation. I already answered a couple in the chat because I wanted to make them timely answers. So is Study Island only K through 8? No, it's K through 12.
K-12,
Keely
yes.
had that question. And then Dr. Smith, can we get a copy of the presentation? Well, as Laura just reiterated, you're going to get the copy if you register. Obviously, you're here, you register for the session, you'll get a recording, and then also the other materials that Laura will be sending. Looks like Bechtold.ni mentioned that I love the Lexile connection. That was just a statement more than a question, but thank you.
Well, if I can reiterate on that, both Calvert and courseware do a superb job of making sure that those Lexiles are very much on point per grade level. So if you go into an 8th grade courseware class, it's going to be aligned to an 8th grade Lexile level. Likewise, our math courses are similarly aligned to quantiles. And so there's no guessing. So if you have data and you're trying to match that to a student's functional levels and developmental needs, we really strive to make sure that they are on point.